What's
in.
interesting about that, though, is
Mm.
when the cold chain started out, and this is a really interesting, like a lot of infrastructure has government involvement because it's seen as part of national security. And the cold chain initially, I mean, a lot of the early research was done in the UK because after World War One, the British government was like, oh, we can't feed ourselves. We don't have enough storage. If those
Exactly.
ships from Australia and New Zealand go down, we will starve. And they were being sunk by, German U-boats. And that was, the government suddenly realized we need storage. And so there was this initial investment. But I think, kudos to the cold chain. It's done such a great job at providing a seamless supply that I would say that governments have taken their eyes off the ball and said, well, we're fine then, aren't we? And it's not been until you have these crises, COVID, being primary among them, that, and Brexit in the UK being this wake up call as well. I think we're going to see all kinds of things happen with the incoming administration in the US, which God help us. But anyway, and tariffs and whatnot. But I think until you get that wake up call, the cold chain has done an amazing job of making it seem like we've got this. And there has been this eye taken off the ball, I think, in terms of, well, what do we need for national security, though? What do we need for resilience as a country? What do we need for our own economy and our own food security, like you say? And can we just make sure we have that thinking done at a national scale? And I'm really glad that those conversations are happening in Australia because I think, there's a lot of places where, yeah, the eye has been taken off the ball there.
Vicky, thank you for saying all that. I'm listening, and my heart is swelling. We need this. We need other countries, perhaps, because we are pushing it with federal government, but we haven't actually got uptake, and it's very, very frustrating for us because it's a bit of, excuse the acronym, but it's chicken and egg stuff. I think almost that the cold chain and the food supply chain in total, not, that we are part of that longer chain, of course. One of those chains breaks, everything falls over.
Yeah.
One chain. It We're an inch away from having a disaster, and we need our government to support us to get a plan ready. There's UK, Canada, there are certain countries that have it, we don't.
Yeah.
And so,
Interesting.
this is something that we are pushing at the moment.
Yeah.
If we were to finish off now, what would you like people to know about this wonderful book that you've written? What's the main, it's just fascinating that somebody outside has gone, oh God, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
What would you like people to know about your book, and why did you write it, and what would you love for the outcome of, what effect would you like your book to have?
Oh, that's such a good question. So first of all, I'd like people to know that it is just really interesting. I was really interested, and I can't count the number of people. I mean, the New York Times Book Review put it best. They said in their book review, they were like, I know, a 300-page book about refrigeration doesn't sound like anyone's idea of fun, but this is a page turner. And I was so chuffed when I heard that because I was like, yes, it is fascinating. And so for people who are outside the industry and have no idea, I want them to I want them to pick it up and realize they need to know about this. My real goal is, do you remember about 15 years ago, the expression farm to table was suddenly
Paddock to plate,
everywhere.
farm to table, yeah, all of those, yeah.
Exactly. And people started thinking about where their food was grown, how it was grown, right? That
Ice
was
creams do not grow on trees, just loudly. Who would have
exactly.
thunk it?
And really, it was a wake up call for a lot of people like, oh, thinking about where this was grown, who grew it, how it was grown, the conditions it was grown under, what was involved, all of that. And a lot of change has come from that, a lot of positive change in a lot of ways. And what I would like to say is, okay, now it's time to think about the two, the preposition. You thought about the farm, you thought about the paddock. Let's think about the two, because that's the cold chain. And you need to think about that too. The same attention, the same sense that this is actually important. And if we're going to eat food, we need to think about how it's grown. Well, if we're going to eat food, we need to think about how it's moved around and stored too, how it gets from the farm to the table. And so I would love to see the same way there was a farm to table movement, a sort of a, a a thought about, okay, this is the other side of that equation. How our food is stored and moved around really matters. It matters for our health. It matters for what food tastes like. It matters for what we get the opportunity to buy in the supermarket. It matters for how much things cost and where they're grown and, what our landscape looks like and what the global climate looks like. There's been an unwillingness. This was another thing I read in reviews, people saying, well, do you really want to know how the sausage gets made? And there's been an unwillingness to think about it. People will just think, oh, it's fresh. And they don't think, oh, it's actually been in a controlled atmosphere warehouse for 9 months or whatever, and they're a little uncomfortable with
Confronted.
that thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want that confrontation to happen because I want people to have, and I think it's important to understand how much goes into getting your food to you and what a difference that has made in the world and how we could maybe do it better in the future.
Mm. Lovely, Nikki. When I started 7 years ago at the RWTA, I was told by one of my board members, the cold chain is full of screaming extroverts. Introverts, where they don't want to talk to you. They knuckle down. They are pragmatic. They are amazing. They kept this country running, and all over the world, the cold chain kept everybody fed. It is a vital service.
Yeah,
They are underestimated, and I see your book as a love letter to the cold chain
well, that's
because you
great.
have brought it to the attention of the general public. The way I found out, just out of interest for you, is a lady that I walk with, and her
No
name is
way.
Marie Cunnington, and we just walk and we kind of bump into each other and talk. And over the years, we've sort of worked out what each other does, etc. And she said, "I had to talk to you. There's a book out there. I heard a podcast, and it. Do you look after the transport of and the storage of food?" And I went, "Yeah, I do." And she said, Her name is Nicola Twilley, and she wrote Frostbite. And from there, I went and bought it. So I thank you from the depths of my heart, because honestly,
Thank you.
trying to bring this to the general public, and she is interested. She said, "This is really interesting stuff." And I said, "You're right. It really is. It is
It
fascinating
really
stuff,
is.
and it's just amazing." So, for anybody out there, so within the membership, Frostbite is an essential read for anyone involved in the cold chain industry, especially for experts like the ones who are listening now in the cold chain, the RWTA members. So, Nikki, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity. And you're right, it's a love letter to an industry that really doesn't blow its own trumpet enough. So I am very happy and always happy to, anyone in the industry, welcome to contact me at any time. I'm always happy to talk because it's really important and I'm really passionate about it. So thank you.
Mm, and thank you very much. We will talk again, I'm absolutely sure.
Terrific.